Hello everybody, this is Aceofzeroz and I'm wanting to show you guys more about what I actually do for my porting techniques that I showed you earlier in my guide. However, for seems like most of you don't really see exactly how it's done based on how I actually wrote it. So what I'm gonna do now is that I'm gonna actually show you how I typically port ROMs from the other Motorola phones, the other Motorola OMAP phones. So to get started right away, we go into WinMerge. That is WinMerge for Windows. If you are using Linux, I only think that Meld is the only option, but I'm not too experienced with Meld, and WinMerge is just very easy to use. So now that you've opened WinMerge, what you need to do is click the select files and folders icon. You go and select whatever port ROM you need in the first slot. That's just my preference though. But whatever ROM you're going to be using, whichever way you put it, just ensure that you have your base ROM and your port ROM there. As you see, I have a whole lot of ROMs here that I was experimenting with, and some that you have seen, some that you haven't. Point is that I am going to show you using Veneer as an example. Veneer from Maserati, actually. I think that's either the Droid Bionic or the Droid 4. I don't remember exactly which one, but it's the Maserati, and that one is another OMAP phone, Motorola OMAP phone that is similar to the Droid Razor, the Droid Razor GSM, and of course the HX2. So this is this is a folder containing the files already unzipped. They need to be unzipped in order to actually carry this out. So most of you would already know that. And continuing, we select Veneer as the first one, and for the next one we need our base now. Now you need to go to wherever you keep your bases. I like to keep them all organized. Whatever you do, just ensure that you're able to work with what you need. And we are going to select the latest CM, because that's another thing you all have to keep in mind. You have to pay attention to whatever your port's main source base is. So, for example, Veneer is mainly based on CM. Other ROMs like, say, Liquid Smooth, or I guess Beanstalk and such ROMs, they're actually based more on, say, Slimcat, and ROMs differ like that. And you may not know, but the latest Dirty Unicorns uses OmniROM as their base. So you have to keep that in mind when you want to actually port these, other than actually building them. So now that you've selected your base and port ROM, we are going to go straight ahead into what we need to do first, and that is to go to the meta INF. The file contents is something that you don't really have to worry about most times unless you're actually porting from a completely different um, manufacturer device, such as like a Samsung or such. That's the only time you will actually need to modify this. So you see everything is mainly similar, nothing really different here, so we can ignore that. So go straight to meta-inf, com, Google, Android, update your script. This is where we need to actually take care of what we need. Now, this will only mainly apply for us in the Atrix using the older updater script. For the ones who actually have SafeStrap and can use the newer updater script, they really don't need to follow this step at all. It's just for us in the Atrix 2 section, because we're still stuck on BMM and such. Well, I don't know if we're actually gonna get SafeStrap, but honestly, I don't mind. BMM is just beast, but that's just me. So, what we need to do now is we need to copy it over this difference. See, everything yellow. Copy it over for us, the HX2, and that's essentially it, because everything else is similar. And the next thing you can do is, when it's like that, when you see that most of this is similar and you know that they're both similar devices, you don't even have to go inside the actual file. You can just simply copy over the entire file from our base to our port, and you're done. And now we are going to open select file folder again and press OK. That's what I use as my little shortcut to get straight to the starting point, and then go to system. Alright, everybody gets very, very confused in system, and I don't blame them because I didn't make it very clear with what you need to do, and I've been actually updating and trying new ways in order to port my ROMs faster, easier, and more efficient. So I'm going to actually show you what I've been doing as of late. We start off with Bing, because apps, unless it's very different, as I said, like a different brand, Samsung, that's the only time you'll actually need to pay attention to apps. Or if you want to add something or take out something out of those folders, then that's the only time you will actually go to them. Same for media, same for fonts, and so on. Whatever folders I actually go into are the ones you need to pay attention to. Alright? So next thing we need to do now is go to show different items, untick that. Now we need to select everything, and then we have to copy from left to right, as in from our base to our port. Yes, and that's it. And we're not done yet. Now we have to go back to view, show different items. And because our different devices differ by, say, the network, if you do not do this step, then you will have no network if you are actually able to boot the ROM. So this step is actually very vital. So you need to copy this file called reeld, and you actually need to copy this file as well, sensor service, because it's responsible for sensors like, say, especially GPS. It's mainly controlling GPS. So persons who have the compass problems, the compass not working, this is a file you actually need to copy over. And for sometimes we actually need to copy over the Wi-Fi files, which are these two, WPA underscore CLI and WPA underscore supplement. Sometimes, but for basically all the motor phones, ours are the same, so that's not necessary here. What you do need to actually copy over, probably most times, based on whichever one you actually, whichever ROM or whichever device you take the ROM from, is bold. This is one that you have to copy over, and especially for us for the Atrix2, since ours differs. Sorry. Since our SD card setup differs from the other Motorola phones, because they all have internal and external SD, while we at the Atrix2 only have external SD, or internal, we have a non-existent internal SD. So in this case, we can replace it, but for the sake of this tutorial video, we actually don't. Most times, we really don't have to replace the bold, as long as we're able to boot. I can tell you that the SD card will work just as it should and everything. So that's up to you. If you want to replace the bold so that you will actually be able to unmount and mount your SD card, then you do that. So for the sake of this video, we will replace these three files: bold, sensor service, reeld. And that's it for bin folder. Shortcut, first difference, up, next, etc. folder. It may not look very big, like a huge big deal folder, but it actually is. It's one of the core folders that allow the ROM to actually boot. So you have to pay attention to this one. So what we do in here is that we ignore majority of the things here for the motor ROMs. You actually have to pay attention for other brand ROMs like Samsung. And what we need to focus here on are these files here: firmware, GPS, and KESIC. Our KESIC files differ for the different devices, so we actually need to do this. So those are the three folders you need to copy over from the base to the port. And don't really need to copy over these extra files like nano and whatever else is there, nuance and these extra files. You don't need to. They're not actually needed. You just need to get the three here, or firmware, GPS, and KESIC over there. For other devices, you may not have this GPS folder in here, so just pay attention mainly to the firmware and KESIC, and you'll be alright. We don't need to replace Wi-Fi because ours are the same. Again, we definitely need to replace the APN config XML, DOS daemon. Don't really need to add this changelog CM most times. Location. This is our, or should I say, these are our vendor files for the Atrix 2. It will differ for the different motor devices, so if you don't see these exact ones for your actual base ROMs, don't mind it because they differ for the different devices in terms of our vendors. And now we continue selecting the vendor files, especially media profiles, APN configuration. Everybody has that, so they have to include that in their replacements. And that's all we really need to replace. Everything else you can just leave alone. That's it. And but we're not done yet. First, we have to go to init d init.d. Yeah. Um, we don't really need to do this every time for the inits from base support, but sometimes it helps. So you copy over mainly this one. You don't need to copy over the banner or whatever the the double zero file init file is. Whatever it is, you don't really need to copy that over most times. You just leave it alone most times. And that's it for the etc. folder. It's actually more work for other brand devices, as I said. Now, here's a thing. Oh, and by the way, for what I've actually been doing, what I've been doing so far is essentially the gist of Motorola porting method 1. That was just the gist of it right there for what I've done so far. What I'm doing now here is the extra step that is involved in Motorola porting method 2, or the step that involves that you have to go into change the storage list.xml, and that can be found in framework res.apk. So for this step, we open both framework res apks from both ROMs. So open left and open right. Then you put them beside each other like that, and you in WinRAR, yes, you open APK files with WinRAR, and then you click on name until you have it running from in a descending order, or should I say ascending, whichever order this is. Make sure it's actually the lower letters of the alphabet on the top, so that you have an easier time getting to XML, which is what we need. So let's do that again. You're in framework res.apk using WinRAR or any other compression tool. You go into the res folder, and then you go into XML. That is where storage list XML is. These are the contents of the XML file. They are kind of unreadable because you need to decompile the file to actually see exactly what's there, but you don't really have to worry about that. That's the more advanced stuff. And now we do the same here. Res XML storage list. Now check this out. This is how you actually know that they're different. Check out the size of them both. You notice that the one from the Maserati is 800 because of their dual SD card. setup, while us for the HX2 have a smaller one because we have a single SD card setup. Now, make sure that you don't get it confused whenever you're opening the res and the res. Sorry, whenever you open the storage list for your base and your port, make sure that you do like what I do. Put your port on the left hand side, and put your base on the right hand side so that you won't get confused when you have to replace them. Got that? So replacing now, we replace storage list XML in the Maserati folder. Okay, and that's it. That really is it for what you need to do here. So you close both of them, and that's really all you have to do in the firmware folder all the time. Now we're back to the system folder again, and for some reason I've always needed to copy over we need to copy over the vendor files. No matter what, we need to copy over the vendor files for our devices. The user folder though is also needed because for some reason I was having some trouble the first time around porting with hardware keys not doing as they should. So what you need to do now is replace them from base to port. Okay, once that's done, then that's pretty much what you need to do outside here. Before we end off, we have to now change the build prop, which is a huge deal maker in porting. I know I made it very confusing the first time when I wrote the guide, but now I'm going to actually show you what I do with the build prop so that you can all see that it's not that bad after all. And we go right into it to see. You don't really have to do these small steps like replacing whichever your device code name is, but I do it all the time for mine just to show that this one's a port and all that kind of stuff. So that's all I need to do for renaming it from Vanier Maserati to Vanier Edison. You do that for your devices if you want, and you can rename all of this part as you like, but that's up to you. I don't really mess around in build version incremental, so yeah, don't really need to mess with that. Next thing you need to do though is, you don't mess with the build date. You don't really need to mess with it, even though it's not gonna hurt you if you mess with these, but you must never replace or touch these lines because these lines right here will actually prevent your ROM from booting or even flashing, I should say, because it speaks to these lines actually connect to a meta folder, a meta file in the updated script. So keep that in mind. Never replace these lines. Build description and build fingerprint. Alright, moving on. You don't really need to replace these either, the user and the host, only if you want. What you need to replace are these lines from row build product, or should I say, from row build product all the way to row build device, row product device. Replace that completely. Sorry about that. I think it's still highlighted. There again. Left. Alright, that's all we really need to do for those parts in the middle there. Now, here's where I was not making it clear before, but now I've changed my methods. So all you have to do is just follow what I do. Highlight everything going straight down on the base build prop all the way to the bottom to where you see additional build properties. That's the place where you stop. Depending on which device you have, it'll be different. Especially these parts here for the other devices that are not Atrix that have the switchable SD cards. But for us in the Atrix, we just get rid of because we don't really need that line. So we copy all this from the left. Everything highlighted. There we go. So now that will definitely allow it to boot. But for some reason, Vanilla has it kind of strange with this way. The additional build properties are kind of weird. So it's kind of actually you don't really need to worry about the additional build properties most times. Pretty much everything you have here can be left alone. Yeah, pretty much. Actually, that's all. That's all for the build. Sometimes you would want to replace over here. So so sorry about that. So we're going to be finishing here by saving what we change, review what you change to ensure that everything is placed. It will differ from ROM to ROM, so don't worry about this part. Just keep in mind that additional build properties isn't the big deal. The big deal is everything in between additional build properties and row fingerprint. Once you can replace all of those, then most of the time you're home free. And that's it for the build property. Now the final one, and by far the most influential and important folder that everybody I know should have had some difficulty one way or another with, is the lib file, the lib folder, I should say. What we're going to do now, first and foremost, once we go in there, is we're going to do what we did for the bin folder. We're going to set the view to only allow it show different files and folders. And for all the Motorola phones, you're just going to replace all these files. These files are the vendor files for the specific device. If you never pay attention, that's what they are exactly. So what we need to actually replace this time is we start off with modules. Okay, we need to replace modules folder, which is the main folder we need to entirely replace most times. And then we need to select all these files, but I'm gonna just take the faster way by selecting everything going up to the end of the SSL folder, then control select modules, replace everything, and copy everything over. That's it. But we're not done here. We're gonna go into hardware folder now, and this is completely optional. You don't need to delete them, but for just the sake of either file size or cleaning up, you can delete the specific device hardware files, but we don't really need to do it this time. So copy over your device's files. That will clear everything up, and that will actually allow your device's hardware features to work, like brightness, auto rotation, lights, etc. And that's it for the unique files that we need to copy over. Finally, the grandstanding finale is that we have to now copy over the real files that control your network connectivity, your ability to connect to your networks and such. Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, or just whatever unlocked network you're on, like how I have Digicel here in Jamaica. So what you'll select is, depending on what you have here, you have to ensure to replace all your real files that have real inside their names. So for the most common differences, it's real utils, lib real utils, lib real, and lib reference real all the time. You always have to replace those three. And then down here, we for just to complete the sensor service, this has to be done in order to get GPS working on your device. Replace, and that's it. That actually is it, everybody. That's all you need to do for porting from one Motorola device to the other. Most times, most times. Everything else that you could do would be probably too advanced. So this is basically the basics of performing the Motorola porting method, including both Motorola porting method 1, 2, and I think probably 3 if I actually put a 3, but anyway, that's pretty much all you have to do. So at the end of all that, you zip up your files accordingly, ensure that everything is in place, veneer, and make sure that whenever you're zipping it up, it's always zip. So in this case, we will call it veneer Edison. Edison 4. And zip it up. Hope I wasn't too fast with you, but since this is a video, you guys can go over all the little parts that I may have sped through. Sorry for those who may not have all that good connection or such, or whoever has difficulty being able to comprehend this video, but it's the best I can do for this moment. Sorry about that. And ensure everything is there. I can't really show you proof that it will work, but I can assure you that it will work. As long as you follow these rules and these guidelines, that is all you have to do. Thank you for listening and have a great day.